Thank you for that incredible introduction that I now have to try to actually live up to. And hello, everyone. Welcome to Austin. It is so great to see such a packed room. As you heard, I am Galina Espinoza. I am the editor-in-chief of FlowSpace, which is a She Media digital brand dedicated to women's health after the age of 35. And I always love saying after the age of 35 because I feel like we don't talk that much about women after the age of 35, particularly when it comes to healthcare. This has not traditionally been an area of focus for the medical community, but that is starting to change. And it's starting to change in part because of all the amazing advocacy work being done by women's health leaders, including the two who are about to join me today. Joining me now, both of these women are in the FlowSpace Advisory Council, is board-certified OBGYN and Chief Medical Officer of HERS, Dr. Jessica Shepard, and the Executive Director of the Burn-Bound Women's Leadership Center at NYU Law, Jennifer Weiss-Wolf. Please welcome Dr. Shepard and Jennifer Weiss-Wolf. So we are here today actually to celebrate a really incredible digital publication that Jennifer has put together called The Citizen's Guide to Menopause Advocacy. Yes, okay. You created this as a free guide that anyone could download. You heard Sam say we're going to share the link. Why was it important for you to create? I'm sure it took a lot of time and energy. You're giving it away for free. Why did you decide that was how you wanted to get this message out into the world?
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here. It's so good to be here in Austin. I'm always kind of the oddball in the room. I'm the lawyer who really cares about menopause. And I've been really trying to dig in for the past few years about what were the policy deficits and what would be the solutions to why menopause is such an inequitable experience for the millions who go through it. And I'd been working on this and planning sort of this grand way to introduce it. And then honestly, the election happened. And I thought that the combination of the fact that there has been so much momentum around menopause and public policy in particular that could improve the menopause experience, I did not want to see that squandered in any way. Really the idea was to, the name of this booklet is exactly what it is. It is a citizen's guide. It is meant for everybody. It is meant for anybody who cares and wants to be involved. It's not partisan. And interestingly, as we'll talk about it, I don't think this advocacy is dependent on a particular political landscape to be successful. I think there are a lot of ways to approach it. But I wanted it out there, and I wanted it out there fast, and I wanted it out there for the masses. And anyone who's published a book knows that book publishing is hideously slow. So the idea of creating something that could live on the internet, be accessible to all. I should add that I partnered with Dr. Mary Claire Haver and several other physicians and advocates and activists to put this together. So it's in PDF form. It's available to everyone. It'll be on the FlowSpace website. And we'll talk more about it.
And I think what's so powerful, we were just talking backstage, is that there are 6 action items that literally anyone could take. It's very easy, it's very doable, and you can also see why it's so important for all of us to be speaking up and demanding the health care that we deserve. So I'm going to break down each of these points, and Dr. Shepard, I'm going to start with you because the first call to action is that we need to reset the record about menopause hormone therapy. Why is the record in need of being resetting?
You started with the big one. You're like, let's just get to menopause hormone therapy, or HRT, but that actually needs to be reset, obviously, because 20 years ago there was a study that kind of was a disservice to women in general, and so that really requires a lot of re-messaging, of people understanding how they fall into that category, why it might be for them. That can create confusion, it can be overwhelming, and I think with the Citizen's Guide to Menopause Advocacy is allowing for this overwhelming topic for women to kind of dial it down, and men as well, as they look at this guide, is saying, okay, let me take it in piecemeal and seeing where I can fit in, what I can speak to, and what's important for me to be able to share my voice. So when we think of re-messaging that, is because I think even as a physician and someone who's passionate about menopause, is that we didn't do our due diligence on the healthcare side to ensure that women knew what was important, what that message was, and how they can be their best advocate. I think that there was so much that could have been done in a better way that now we have to kind of go backwards and reset that message. It is crucial that women truly understand the benefit of hormone replacement therapy, MHT, not only for this transition in their life that they're going through, that they may have a lot of symptoms, but really, how are we going to show up later requires the ability for us to see in right now, current state, so we can plan better.
Yeah. All right. Action item number 2 is to catalyze a modern, equitable menopause research agenda. What does a menopause research agenda look like? What are the items on that we should be asking for?
Well, to even just double back a little bit on the confusion that abounds because of the 2002 WHI announcement, that confusion, I think it's like wrapped up in everything, right? It made it such that research ground to a halt, and there really wasn't an appetite or an investment in it any which way. It lent itself to all of the other things we're going to talk about too. Why education became substandard, quite frankly, when it comes to menopause, why menopause treatments are so hard to access or unaffordable. So the research actually, I mean, I'm not a doctor, I don't even play one on TV or anywhere, but the research spans everything. There is so much we don't know about the preventative aspects of hormone therapy, whether that's on our brains, whether that's on our hearts, whether that's on our bones. There's just so much we don't know. And all of that confusion is what will be unraveled when we finally invest in that research. But the time is now. It has to start somewhere. And it's an odd thing to say as we see research budgets being stripped and we see some,
because
challenging and questionable
we're asking
leadership.
For investment, right? We're asking for money.
Yeah, so it's not happening in an odd moment, or it's happening in an odd moment. But there's never been a bigger, stronger moment to keep reinforcing this point. And we're going to be in, I think, a pretty turbulent time when we look at who some of the leaders of the various agencies that are critical at this moment are. It's the NIH, it's the FDA, it's the CDC, it's all of these things. But that vigilance that we need more broadly absolutely can and should be applied to menopause. And again, if not now, when? So I'll just keep saying that.
I mean, if not now, when will we start training doctors
That
in
is a
medical
great
school?
question.
Because that's your third
Yes.
call to action, to actually demand that when you go to medical school, you have to have more than 1 hour of classroom training about menopause.
I even
Dr.
remember.
Shepherd, what were you taught in medical school?
I mean, that's a great question because it was so short. It was so short-lived. Maybe a paragraph or a page. But even going to that, we have so many, and that's why I love that it's broken down in bite-sized pieces so people can really say, oh, this is the political side or this is the educational research side, symptom side. That's how people can feel where they want to play a part. Now, when we go back to training, it is absolutely mandatory, it should not be an option, it should be mandatory that they are taught in medical school the importance of it going forward through residency and in practice, which we didn't get, And I think even then, around the time of the WHI is when I was in training, and I remember it was completely now not part of the vernacular, or when people come in with symptoms, we really didn't have a good toolbox because there was nothing there to give, and we were scared. And so what we see now is when people start to practice, or when we get these guidelines or recommendations that really is the helm of how we come up with treatment plans, recommendations, how organizations come up with protocol, has to be started with the fundamental learning of that. Now, where I do see some of the struggle is, okay, even though we know now we need to educate, is now going back to research, what do we truly know? And that's some of the obstacle we see is, yes, we may be right on top of wanting to know this and educate, but what is the research behind it? And so I still think we still need to expand what we learn so that we still have this knowledge base, this fundamental scaffolding of this is very important.
Right. All of the systems are interconnected and need to be working on this issue. And that brings us to the next point, which is about making menopause treatment affordable, which is a huge issue. Jen, can you talk about what you think the path to affordability looks like?
Yeah, so, and to be really clear, this guide isn't just about menopause hormone treatment, although that is what lends itself to many of the
Calls to action.
potential policies and calls to action. And some of the stuff that I think is really doable right here, and that's about what which is not to say that getting the NIH to change the record isn't doable or getting federal research dollars isn't doable. It is, it's just a different kind of work. There's a real appetite right now, especially at the state level, to commit to ensuring that at least some of the basic things that we know, do, and have are available to people who need them. And making menopause treatments affordable is one of them. Again, going back to the research and education, it's so, the way you just described it is interconnected. I always describe it as a ball of twine, not even a ball of yarn, that if you threw it and the yarn would like go in a straight line, but it's like a ball of twine where everything gets stuck to each other and you have to keep pulling it apart. That's how I feel about all of these different paths. But part of the reasons why menopause treatments are not made affordable, covered by insurance in forms that are generic or otherwise made cheaper, is because there's been no investment in it. I mean, it all goes back to that root place. But the positive piece, at least right now, about the affordability aspect is making sure that public and private insurance covers these treatments has become a priority, in particular for state legislators. And we saw in this past year, and this will also hearken to why this is doesn't have to be a partisan issue. The state of Louisiana was the first state to mandate that private and public insurance covers menopause treatments. The state of Illinois followed. They had interestingly done so prior to Illinois, but for a very small subset of people who experience menopause, earlier premature menopause, in particular from having hysterectomy or cancer treatments. I can only imagine that happened because some man had this happen to someone in his family.
Why would you say
and
that?
Decided that then that's when policies should be, applied.
Oh, this
fair.
is a thing.
Right, oh, that's a thing. So I will say the women of the Illinois state legislature took that particular law and expanded it, and starting January 2026, menopause treatments will be covered by insurance for all people who want them and
Go
need them.
Illinois, yes.
Yeah, right?
We're like, start with one.
California passed such a bill last year, and Governor Newsom vetoed it. Oregon has recently introduced such legislation, and New York and Michigan are teed up to do the same. All of which is to say, everything doesn't have to happen in Washington. We don't have to storm the steps of the Senate or Capitol Hill to get this done. State legislatures are a great resource for this, and are getting it done.
Such a great resource that, in fact, if you go to theflowspace.com, shameless plug, we actually have an interactive map there that if you click on your state, it will tell you what the requirements are for insurers in that state when it comes to menopause.
That piece is amazing. It's an amazing resource.
Thank you, thank you. All right, we've got 2 more action items, and this is a big one. If you follow the menopause conversation on social media, there's been a lot of talk about this black box label that women advocates are fighting to get removed. Can you talk us through where that came from? And why you think it should be removed?
Yeah, not to give too much kind of notice to the WHI study, but that's where it started, is really the ability to take something and allow to say that it causes something. The FDA, what they're required to do is make sure that there's safety and efficacy in anything that's on the market or on the shelves. So with that, because of what that study heralded, is that there came black box warnings in what it may cause. Now, on hormone therapy. So looking back, we do now know that cause, or what's on that black box warning, is actually very outdated and not current. In order to get that off would require to go back to the FDA, and I've sat on a lot of committees at where we go to those meetings and we help them understand with research, going back to research, why this is not applicable. Now, that's where you start to see the twine effect, the bad twine. We're talking about good twine, but bad twine when you have a lot of different things that are interacting to create an obstacle too. And so the other thing that I would say to that, so there's obstacle, which is one answer, but 2, we fundamentally have research that negates what the black box warning says. And thirdly, I would say that we definitely need to be more of an advocate from a consumer, from a patient, from a woman's standpoint, because we can make that noise in order to be heard. And women's health, I think, always takes a back burner because I agree with you. If it were a man's or a male's hormone therapy that had a black box that needed to be taken off, do you think it would be off already? It would have been off yesterday or maybe the day before. So I think that there is also that thing that kind of like irks me about women's health is it's just never taken very seriously.
Well, they're trying to protect us, you know.
Are they?
Yeah. All right, and the last call to action is about the workplace and ensuring meaningful workplace support measures. What is your dream vision for how corporations would handle menopause for all of their female employees?
Before I get to the corporate dream, I do want to say there is a citizens action initiative that is spearheaded by Let's Talk Menopause, which I know has lots of talks and things scheduled here this weekend, but it's called Unboxing Menopause, and it is a campaign where you can sign a petition that will go to leadership of the FDA and citizens' voices can be raised. There's similar happening for doctors and other experts, but all of us who are everyday people who are not medical experts can also
using
participate.
Our voice to collectively.
So Let's Talk Menopause is where to go for the Unboxing Menopause campaign. Corporate vision. Okay, I'm always like the crank in the house about this, because while I do think it's really important that workplaces acknowledge the economic value and input and contributions of women and women of the age of menopause, just coming up with little, tweaks to make things a little bit more comfortable for us is really not the most ultimate or radical investment we can ask for, especially in a country where anti-discrimination law is not strong. And if we take advantage of some of those benefits, we could be setting ourselves up for problems down the road when there are no laws on the books that protect us really fully on the basis of age, sex, or any other aspect that might come to bear. So I'm a little bit cranky sometimes about workplace policy, but I will say that the Citizens Guide points to what best practices are for how a workplace should function and treat its employees, especially employees of this age and stage. But my real call to corporate America and CEOs and people who have the power to create these kinds of policies is to get involved in numbers 1 through 5. Be a voice in Capitol Hill, be a voice in Congress, be a voice in your state legislatures. Make sure these other reforms that are going to be provide much deeper solutions are really how you want to see your leadership shine.
Amazing. Well, did you want to add
I just wanted to add one
Yes.
quick thing is the one thing that we've kind of all said throughout this entire thing when we think of menopause hormone therapy is access. And, as chief medical officer at HERS, that is one of the things that we are very profound about is access, because without access, then no matter what we say or talk about, then women still can't get to it. And even as a Black female physician, I've seen so many things that impact women, and it's the access that a lot of times creates so much of the problem. And so, I'm very proud to be able to be part of a company where in all our verticals, we are looking at how can we best utilize access to any woman who would want to get what they need.
Well, it is clear there is a lot of work still to be done, but the great news is that you all can play a part in driving this change and being part of this movement. So thank you, Dr. Shepard. Thank you, Jennifer. And thank you all for your attention today.